I can kill someone with my book.
Please don't kill someone with the Silmarillion. We have enough death that happens in it. We don't need
Cause of death, Silmarillion.
So welcome to the Taming of Tolkien. So I am Ellie and this is Arai, and we decided to take a summer break from our main channel to discuss one of our favorite topics, Tolkien. I will say it right this time. So what we are going to do today is explain a little bit about ourselves and our personal relationships to the works of Tolkien. It's back to it. I can't keep up with Tolkien. Sorry. And then sort of outline the plan for this channel.
The ultimate goal is to use this channel to delve into some of the works of Tolkien, making it fun and interesting, and share our wealth of knowledge with everyone.
Yay.
I personally, off script and hoping we cover all of Tolkien, just saying. We are by no means experts, but this is a passion that we have and we want to share it with everyone. Tolkien can be boring, so Ellie says, I beg to differ because I like his style boring.
He can be boring.
I like his style of writing, but we hope, or our hope is to allow people who have struggled with his text to learn about them in a different format that will definitely be more fun and probably with a lot of arguments on pronunciations.
It's okay. So now that we finished that, I had some questions I thought we could run through. And then we're going to sprinkle in a shit ton of memes. But so that means we're coming up to our first meme if you want to scroll back to those memes.
Yes. I guess we should say that this is our introductory episode. We're not touching the work just yet.
Yeah.
But we will be starting with the Bible. The Silmarillion.
Silmarillion. Oh, mine's super crazy. There we go.
And you've never read it before, correct?
I have read it once. I've read a couple of the stories multiple times, but the whole thing I've only read once.
Got it. Yeah, me too. Once in high school. It's a hard one. It's a hard one. And a lot of people don't read it because it's hard, but tune into our next episode as we tackle it's not really a chapter, it's the first prelude story.
Yeah, the first prequel.
Yes.
It has 2 prequels and 2 sequels.
Now on to the memes?
Yes, the very first one that I sent. They should have been sent in order. This is the perfect place, I thought, for the first one. So I know we're going to have it on the screen, but I wanted to make sure you saw them in real time.
Yes, this is a great icebreaker. To start with memes.
Yeah.
To sort of set the mood for this channel.
And it is 100% true. I have so many Lord of the Rings memes on my phone.
Then I think you should read this one.
That says, how many Lord of the Ring memes do you have on your phone? And then it's the part in, what is this, the Two Towers?
Yeah. With
Theoden and Aragorn. And he's like, 6,000. Less than half of what I've hoped for. More will come. I have so many on my phone.
The context of this for people who aren't as familiar with the movies is they're talking about soldiers.
Yeah.
It's really nicely with memes. Memes.
All right, so that's the one for right now. And then after this first question, we'll jump back into a couple more because they pertain more to this first question.
Cool.
So I was listening to a whole bunch of different people who talk about Tolkien and Lord of the Rings and all of that. And I noticed that none of them really do this scale, which is actually something that my high school sci-fi teacher did. I took a sci-fi writing class.
Fun.
And on the first day, he was like, rank yourself on your knowledge of sci-fi. So that was kind of fun to see where everyone ranks themselves with this. So the question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being who is Tolkien, and 10 being I am a Tolkienist, which is someone who studies Tolkien, which is a thing that you can actually do in life.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, where would you rank yourself and why?
So, honestly, in high school, I would have put myself at around 8 because literally from 2001 until 2005, every day after school, I did two things. I studied Tolkien and I wrote Lord of the Rings fan fiction. And and back before cosplay, like I knew cosplay was really a big thing. I did a lot of Elvish, like everyday wear, just so you know. But that's all I did. And I was learning to speak Elvish as much as I could teach myself, because the internet wasn't as big of a thing now or then as it is now. That's all I just learned about Tolkien and read his book. I read Lord of the Rings every year from 2001 until 2005. And the reason why there's a hard cutoff at 2005 is I graduated high school, went to college, and just didn't have time. And so it sort of just fell by the wayside for years. I've lost most of that knowledge because
You don't
right?
use it. Yeah, if you don't use it.
So I'd probably put myself around 5 now.
That's perfect. I thought that you might actually do a 5, and I was like, it's going to be really weird because we're both two very different 5s. I think. So it just kind of like is really interesting. So I guess I'll answer. I also put 5. So like I've read The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and the Silmarillion once. Seen all the movies. Every New Year's, my family has a tradition where we watch the 3 Lord of the Rings movies, seen the Hobbit movies, all that. When I was in high school, I actually had to give a speech and presentation on an author, and I did mine on Tolkien. So I know a lot about him himself rather than like the deep knowledge of his works. Like I know a lot about him specifically. And then I was such a nerd that my first and only tattoo currently is from Lord of the Rings. So I was like, I feel like a 5 is a pretty generous, estimate. Like we're both right there, but in 2 kind of different ways, which I like. I think it adds to it, makes it interesting,
2 different perspectives.
Right. So this leads to the next meme.
The best fantasy authors. And in first place, we have J.R.R. Tolkien. In second place, C.S. Lewis. Third place, George R.R. Martin. Fourth place, Brandon Sanderson. He is not someone I know.
He wrote the Wheel of Time series.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, it's like fantasy on crack. It's like this 20 novel saga that he wrote. It's insane.
Sure. Number 5 is Neil Gaiman. And number 6 is J.K. Rowling, which this should now be She Who Must Not Be Named.
Yes, exactly. We don't like her anymore.
And then underneath it, I'm not exactly sure what this guy is doing. He looks like he's about to throw up, but he says Tolkien, know your place, know your fucking place, trash.
I really liked this one because not only was Tolkien on top, but then C.S. Lewis was right under him, and they were the best of friends. And it just made it even funnier that he was listed right under Tolkien. Like I was just like, oh, it's beautiful.
They should forever be on top because those 2 modernized probably isn't the correct word. Those 2 really took fantasy and brought it to a new level, and almost every fantasy novel crafted, even sci-fi. Star Wars has a lot of deep roots in Lord of the Rings, but most things that come out now, like from then on, have been inspired by Tolkien. His works, how they were written, just many different things that did. He changed an entire genre. He actually, if you think about creative genre, because fantasy was a completely weird thing before this.
Yeah, he did. Him and I think C.S. Lewis could kind of be considered the grandfathers of fantasy. I think he writes about it in one of his letters or something like that, but or maybe it's in the fairy tale book that he wrote. He talks about it, but back when he started writing the books, fantasy was considered children's stories. So it was like all the children's stories that we read growing up, that was fantasy. There was nothing past that. And he didn't like that. He was like, no, this should be for everyone. And so that's also why The Hobbit wasn't like an adult book. It was more of a kid's book. And
he wrote it for his son.
Yeah, it was a lot more.
He read out loud a chapter a night. Yeah. Which is why sitting down and reading it all the way through for people like me can be a bit difficult because it's a little disjointed. Is probably too strong of a word, but it definitely has those stops so that you can close it and
Yeah, I actually am currently reading The Hobbit at night to Amy, my daughter. And all she keeps asking me is, when is Gollum appearing? Because that's all
Oh,
she cares about.
I feel like I should read it to my cat because I don't have a kid. Tuck her
Read
in at night and read her The Hobbit.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. All right, so now we're gonna go on to the next meme. And I meant to write it down because I don't fully remember what the actual answer is. So I'll read this one. It's Elrond making a funny face and just says J.R.R. Tolkien's full name. Jolkin Rolkin R. Tolkien. And then what does the second R stand for? Rolkin Tolkien is what the second R stands for. But I believe his name was John something Rule Tolkien. It's like
Ronald.
R-E-L. What?
Ronald.
Ronald. Okay. So I
Yeah.
know like all of his kids have the rule. All of his sons have the rule token. And then kids. Maybe it was like a hyphenated name that he had. Because I think they all have rule token as their last names.
Tolkien.
So the second question that I have that I don't hear a lot of people actually talk about. They talk about it like as they go through the books, like who's their favorite. But I've never had I've been listening to a lot. Shout out to the Prancing Pony. I love you guys. It's a little rough, but I love you guys. So who is your favorite character, books or movie? Since
like you don't know this.
I do, which is why I pre-planned and have a meme just for this.
So Legolas is my all-time favorite character. He doesn't get enough time in the books, but because so if you think about my introduction to this does sound really weird. If you think about my introduction to Lord of the Rings, it was the Fellowship of the Ring movie, and I'm watching the movie, and it comes to where everybody's entering Rivendell, and Legolas hops off of the horse, and that was my first time in my life, because I think I was 13, 14 years old, first time in my life where I had just instant attraction. I was like, who is this? Like instant. And my mom was watching it with me, and I'm so embarrassed because like I'm sure my face got all red as I was like looking at my mom, like, oh my god, please don't notice. I honestly didn't know if he was a girl or a boy though when I saw him. So I was like, I don't know who you are, but I want you. Like, yes. And so I became fangirl obsessed with Orlando Bloom at the same time. But I wound up really, really enjoying the character Legolas in the movie. And then I went and read all the books and the appendices and everything. And I wish he had more to him in the books. There's not enough. But all the fan fiction I wrote was around Legolas. And all the fan fiction I read was about Legolas. But he's I got really obsessed with the elves. You know, that's my favorite sort of character. And there's the elves. I don't know. Legolas, dude.
My favorite is possibly a very controversial favorite. My favorite character is Boromir. I know a lot of people hate on Boromir, and it's not right. Don't hate on Boromir. When we get to like Lord of the Rings, I'll fully delve into why Boromir is a fantastic character. But I'm not going to do it today. This is just an introduction.
I think the people who don't like Boromir are those who haven't read the books.
True. And even then, like, I think it's one of those, not to the same extent that the Silmarillion is, where you like have to read it multiple times to get it. But I think after reading Lord of the Rings a few times, well, I guess mainly just the Fellowship of the Ring a couple of times, it like really becomes apparent how his character is made and like the purpose and everything. I think just like on a first glance, it doesn't really come across that way.
You know, when we get to Lord of the Rings, maybe we should do like some introductory episodes and do one on Boromir, one on Frodo, like a character breakdown. Because like there's a lot of misconceptions, I think, about some of these characters. People only watch the movies, they only read the book, you know. And they don't go into the appendices, which make a huge difference to some characters. Yeah. Also, we can go into like, and maybe this would be maybe when we get through with it, but like how Frodo actually failed. And a lot of people like that's a hot topic. People like Frodo did not fail. I'm like, Frodo failed. He went all that way and he failed. It was by a fluke. that the ring got destroyed.
It was the ring's own power and need that destroyed it.
Exactly. And people are like, but then that sort of makes Frodo's journey unimportant. I'm like, no, that's the point. That's the point. The point is for him to suffer and have all this strength and go all the way to the end and then fail. I won't go into more detail than that because I can rant forever about it. That's like the most simplified thing. Yeah, but I think it would be good to go off into these other categories and talk about like those things, character profiles, motivation.
I could go on for hours about Boromir. I will fight anyone who says he's trash. Fight me, bitches. All right. Anyways, so next two memes. Next two memes. Obviously, the next one is for you.
Ooh.
You're welcome.
This doesn't even need reading. Just look at your screen.
I love it. And then the second one was for me, obviously, so it's Boromir. And it's when you ask your mom for a Lego castle to go with your knight minifigures, but she says no. And it's Boromir in the movie saying, I only ask for the strength to defend my people. Which is horrible because this is right before he tries to take the ring. But it's also funny. Like, we'll get to the sad stuff when we get to The Hobbit. I have so many sad things for The Hobbit. I regret that. So in the books or the movies, what is your favorite quote or quote or two? I picked 3 because I couldn't actually choose.
So I have a poem. That's my favorite.
I did a poem too.
And I went and screenshotted it because I wanted to make sure I got the wording correctly. But I'll tell you my favorite line and then I'll quickly go through the poem. So my favorite line is the one I'm going to get tattooed someday in Elvish. And it is, not all those who wander are lost. The first time I heard that phrase, I was in high school. I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I've always been like sort of a wanderlusty kid. That's a weird way of saying it. Like I have a wanderlust. I've always wanted to like go and explore. And I'm the type of person that will just wander through a city and I like with no destination. I'll take random turns. I'll do whatever. The best way to explore certain cities, I wouldn't say all in my adult mind, but that's my favorite line. But the whole paragraph is really good. And then they actually have the second paragraph in the Fellowship of the Ring, but it also is sort of a pet peeve of mine that I see a bastardization of this like plastered across merchandise. I believe it's like not I don't remember. They like removed words or whatever, and people think they're like, "Oh, I'm such a free spirit." I'm like, "That's Tolkien. Why is he not getting credit for this?"
Yeah, I think it says, "Not all who wander are lost." I think they simplify it too, instead of "Not all those who wander are lost."
Right, and that's a Tolkien quote, and most people I don't think realize that's a Tolkien quote, and it bothered me. Anyway, here's the whole poem. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that is broken. The crownless again shall be king. So like that second one's in the Fellowship of the Ring. Arwen says it. They cut off the best part though. Like the bottom part is your prophecy, right?
Yeah.
They don't need to go together. Like they don't need to. But like the first paragraph is great. It used to be written on my bedroom wall. And then that line, not all those who wander are lost, is like,
I love it.
It's the one that hits me deep.
I love it. So mine are 3 very different ones that I picked. Mine was a poem, something from The Hobbit, and then a line from the Return of the King. So for those who don't know, the tattoo that I have is from a quote at the very end of Lord of the Ring, and it's Frodo talking to Sam after they destroyed the ring. And what I have tattooed is only part of it. So the full quote is, I am glad you are here with me, here at the end of all things, Sam. And what I actually have tattooed is at the end of all things. Because to me, it's like, no matter what, like everything bad happened, but he's still like, I'm glad that it was you who stayed with me, who is here. So it's just like that friendship thing. I don't know, it always got to me. And then the second quote was probably the first time I ever cried while reading a book, and it was spoilers, this book was written in 1917, so fuck it.
If you don't know it now, it's your own fault.
But I picked the movie version of this because I actually am that weird person who likes it a little bit better than what's in the book, but they're both extremely moving and very similar. So it's Thorin's last words to Bilbo, and it's farewell, Master Burglar, go back to your books and your armchair, plant your trees, watch them grow. If more people valued home above gold, this world would be a merrier place. That one's always, I have goosebumps. Like that one has always stuck with me. And then the very last one is also in the movies / it's in the books, and it's the last part of the poem for The Road Goes Ever On. And this is actually some of the last lines that Bilbo says in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So the poem is, the road goes ever on and on, out from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, let others follow it who can. Let them a journey new begin, but I at last with weary feet will turn toward the lighted inn, my evening rest and sleep to meet. I gave myself goosebumps again.
I love the tune in Fellowship of the Ring, how they took the first part and they put it to that tune. I will sing that all the time.
And I think the first and the second stanza in the movies, they kind of like are singing it, and then this one he's like falling asleep while he's saying this or something like that. Is I believe that's how it goes. But that part, the very end of it, is just always sort of touched me. Yeah. I like the touchy-feely bits. I don't know. So we're gonna lighten it up with some memes that have nothing to do with what we just talked about. But
we need to make it happy again because those were deep.
Yeah. So we're just gonna do one, and then we'll jump into the rest of our couple of questions, and then we'll finish the whole thing off with the rest of the memes.
This says, when someone asks me to explain some Tolkien mythology to them, and I feel this to the depths of my soul.
Except they erased Einstein's mathematical equations and put it the Quindy like breakdown.
So it's the Elvish lineage breakdown.
Yeah. So then I have, let me go back. 2 last questions, and then we'll finish it up with some memes and the little intro here. So the next question, I feel like this is an important one to ask anyone who's read any of the books, which is, in The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, if you could add a scene that was removed or change something that happens, what would it be? I feel like we've talked about this, and I feel like I kind of know what your answer is.
I don't know. I'm blanking. I remember getting to this in the document and then doing something else.
There's a lot. There's a lot of
I mean, to be fair, the movies did do what I wanted in The Hobbit and gave me so much Legolas that didn't belong there. I just, I love that. I don't care what people say. I love it. I don't know.
Really?
I really don't know.
I have so many things.
I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, well, I guess I'll do 2 of mine since you don't know what to answer. So my first one, for those who don't know, is that in the Battle of Helm's Deep, it's not the elves who arrive. So my baby Halder should not be there, and he should not die.
This one. Everyone hates this change.
Okay, he should not die. Please bring him back. Okay, thanks, Peter Jackson.
Halder is dead.
No, my baby is still alive.
I think what I'm gonna say when you're done with yours, because I have
you have one? All right. And then my second one, which is another character change that they did that is a massive pet peeve to me, and it is Faramir being tempted by the ring, and it pisses me off to no end.
No one's perfect.
Because in the books, he tells Frodo straight out, and I quote, I'm going to paraphrase this quote, and I quote, I would not take the ring if it were lying on the side of the road in Gondor war and ruin, and I alone had the means to save it. He straight up says, if my entire home was destroyed and none of my people were left, I still would not take the ring, because what the ring can give me is not what I need. And they fuck it up. And it pisses me off so much. More than anything else, that right there. Anyways, I think I'm gonna have to do a whole Boromir Faramir episode, because
If we do that, let's get into AON2, only it is a criticism of Tolkien and not the movies.
actually the movies did her more justice than the book. She has more airtime in the movies.
She becomes a lamp at the end. So
yes, true.
If you read in the appendices, like that's what specifically I'm talking about. She's a plot device, and then she becomes a lot of people like to treat her like this literary goddess. Like Tolkien was like, look at all the power he's giving women, but no, no. We'll get into that. Yeah. We should do one, because like I don't criticize Tolkien very much, but that is definitely one that I think needs to be addressed. Anyway, we'll get into that one later.
So you had one that you thought of?
No, I have a thought though. So I know why I have difficulty answering this question. So I view the movies and the books as two completely separate things. And it's something that I like, it's a state of mind that I developed after watching the Harry Potter movies and realizing that, you know, you can't, it's almost impossible to take a movie adaptation of a book and like compare them against each other, because you're just going to wind up hating the movie. So the movie was my introduction, and then I read the books, and they're so very different. They really are. They're very different works that I've never actually went and thought about how I would want to change either. And because they're two separate masterpieces. And yeah, but I hear your complaints. I've heard them before. I like the elves in Helm's Deep, but again, not because of not because of any sort of change. Like I'm not like saying that they made a good change, like the book was wrong and the movie's right. What I mean is, like, as somebody, of course, by this time I had read the books like a dozen times by the time this movie came out. But by this time, when I saw the movie, to me, it took that scene and made it even more distressing, because an elvish life is considered super sacred. It's a tragedy. Even in the way Tolkien writes things like this, if you lose an elvish life, it's like more of a tragedy than Helm's Deep being wiped out.
Yeah,
the way he writes elves.
It's because elves essentially are immortal. Like they don't die. They don't experience
sacred. And so when you have these like Haldir dying, it's this very impactful thing of like, oh my God, this this immortal being is dead. Like, oh wait, like that's the way that I took it. But apparently the rest of the Tolkien fandom went, shit, no, Haldir's alive, stop killing Haldir. So
I would have been fine with like him living and not doing that. Like I understand why they did it. Like, so I can compare the two and understand why they made the cinematic changes that they did, and I'm okay with them. I accepted them, minus a couple things, because it doesn't make sense for Faramir. Also, the changes that they made to Pippin don't make any fucking sense, because
I love Pippin in the movies.
No, Pippin is not dumb. Pippin is not dumb, okay? Anyways, like I can separate the two. It's just things like that where it's like he didn't have to be the one to die. Like I'm okay with the elves being there, because it would have taken way too much to explain the rangers and all of that. Like that's like a whole nother thing. So like I get why it was done. I just didn't like that they killed him. I know why they did, to make it more impactful, to show that it's not something that happens. Like elves don't die. It's like I get it. Don't like it, but
I will say there are some deleted scenes that I don't think should have been deleted.
Yes, there are a couple. Yeah,
particularly the Mouth of Sauron. So in case people didn't know, Lord of the Rings is very heavily inspired by Christian and Catholic. It's there. It is there. Not as much as C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
No, not as much as C.S. Lewis.
He went out of his way to make it more universal and less Christian specific.
But it's still there. For instance, the mouth of Sauron. So I mean, like you have the god that falls, right? So it's very similar to Christianity. But then you have the mouth of Sauron, which is very similar to the Metatron. And I guess for those of you who don't know, the god can't speak to a human. It essentially make your head explode or something or other. I don't know. I grew up Baptist. This is a very Catholic thing. And so he has an angel that is called the Metatron who speaks for him. Watch Dogma. If you watch Dogma, you know what this is about. They do a great job of explaining it. But in Lord of the Rings, Sauron's just an eyeball, right? He's just kind of a spirit. So he doesn't have a voice, but he has a creature called the Mouth of Sauron that he's able to speak through, very much like Metatron. And in the extended edition of The Return of the King, he's there and he comes out of the gates and he's talking to the armies and Aragorn and whatnot. And it is one of my, like, I love how they did that character. It is the creepiest thing in the world. I love it. And then they cut it and I'm like, why? No, because the whole point of that scene is to show how they're buying time for Frodo and that everyone, including Aragorn, pretty much knows they're about to die. And it's just like this, it builds up the tension and I don't know, I love that scene. Cut it.
Yeah, they made a lot. Maybe we'll do like a dive into the movies as well. We'll see how this goes.
We should do a dive into the movies.
Yeah.
So here's what I think we should do. We should hit the books, follow it up with the movies, and then a separate side episode of just the extended footage. Because it's worth looking into.
All right, I can live with that. All right, so the last question, and then we're gonna dive into the last of the memes. So what fun fact about Tolkien or the books or the movies do you have that you think most people don't actually know? What's your little fun fact?
There's like, do you know the Einstein meme you just showed me? My head is currently going through that, like, what do I want to? So, see, I think most of the stuff that I know is, I just know a lot, and I feel like maybe a lot of it is, here's one that I know. Here, this one's one of my favorites, I guess. I have two, I guess. One is, Tolkien's works are actually completely unfinished. He never got to finish them. The Silmarillion is unfinished. There's unfinished tales which are published.
There's a two-part unfinished tales book.
Right. But his son actually took a lot of his manuscripts and spent his entire life. He died in 2014, 2018.
I don't know.
He lived to be like 94. Christopher Tolkien, the son of J.R.R. Tolkien, spent his entire life doing almost nothing but going through his father's manuscripts and putting together the bits and pieces that he found into more works that could be published because people love this work so much. And you'll find that there's multiple editions because he will publish one edition and then he'll find more or decipher more of his father's work, because some of the things that Tolkien would do is write things down. They wouldn't always be connected. And then so he'd do another edition and another edition. And actually, my favorite story in the Silmarillion is of Luthien and Beren. And a few years ago, they published like a novel this thick that's just of Luthien and Beren. So because he put together more stuff. But I feel like everyone knows that. The other one, it's from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, technically. And that is that the necromancer was never supposed to be Saruman. So in The Hobbit, the big baddie is the necromancer, and that's what he's always called. He never is named. That's just what he is. And then when you read Lord of the Rings, it turns out that necromancer is Saruman. However, that was never supposed to be, because The Hobbit was supposed to be the end of it, and that's that. But when Tolkien's publisher wanted a sequel to The Hobbit, he had Lord of the Rings, a lot of bits and pieces of it written. They weren't supposed to really be connected. They were supposed to be in the same world, but not connected at all. But the publisher really wanted a connection so that they could advertise it as a sequel to The Hobbit. So Tolkien changed the necromancer in The Hobbit to be Saruman.
Oh, I did not know that, actually.
Yeah. So, like The Hobbit still says the necromancer. They never name him as Saruman, but in Lord of the Rings, you find out that necromancer is Saruman, and that was never supposed to be.
Interesting. I did not know that. Oh wow.
Oh wow, I got one you didn't know.
Yeah, I don't think I ever put that together. I don't think I ever put it together. I had no idea. Okay, then mine might be a little weird. Mine are very book specific, so I'll do two because you did two. So my first fun fact is from The Hobbit, and this kind of ties into what you were actually just saying, in that The Hobbit was supposed to be like a one and done book, and because of that, he hadn't fleshed out the world, so they never actually mentioned Middle Earth anywhere in The Hobbit because it did not have a name yet. His universe didn't have a name, and Tolkien is actually not the one who came up with the name Middle Earth. I don't remember who it was that did, but he's always given credit to the person who coined the term.
I don't think I knew that one.
Yes. Yeah. It's because he hadn't come up with it yet. Like, no one had given that term, so they never actually mention the name of the universe that they're in or the world that they're in The Hobbit. Not at all. And then my second fun fact, which you're probably gonna know, just because I know you, and that is that in the Lord of the Rings, they never describe Legolas's hair color, which has led to this really fun theory that he's actually a ginger.
I didn't know that was a theory.
But I think the real reason that they don't ever like explicitly say it is because they talk about so many other elves and how they look that he just doesn't see the point in describing another elf, especially since,
which is weird for Tolkien in descriptions, like.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the reason why they do in the movies they give him blonde hair is because his dad Thranduil has blonde hair. Like his line of elves are known specifically for their like white blonde hair. So those are my two fun facts. I'm glad that I got to tell you one you didn't know. That was exciting.
Building off of that one, so you only see two factions of elves in the movies. You have the elves in technically you see three, because you have the elves in Rivendell, Lothlorien, and then Mirkwood. And Mirkwood and Lothlorien are of the same lineage. And then you have Rivendell, which has the dark hair. So Lothlorien and Mirkwood have blonde hair, and then you have Rivendell, which has dark hair, which comes from a different lineage, and that's why you have elves that have different hair. And my fine little high school brain was like, Rivendell elves are half elves, which they technically are, if I remember correctly. They have a little bit of human blood in them, which has led to a darkening of the hair, whereas the others are pure, which
that's also why they are the elves that can choose between living immortal life and
because they have a bit of mortal blood in them, just a bit. But really,
get to it in the Silmarillion where they talk about that, because we'll meet
yeah. And I don't mean to say that the other elves are pure blood. That sounds bad. I don't mean it that way. I just mean that like they're not.
They don't have human in them. They're different. Yeah. Which I think it does explain a lot. Like, you see more emotion from Elrond than you do from Arwen even. Like, you see Arwen cry, whereas Legolas doesn't feel anything when you watch the Hobbit movies. Thranduil doesn't do anything.
Galadriel goes radioactive. But...
Yeah, she doesn't feel anything other than power, apparently. You know what I mean? Like, I know that that's not true, but
yeah, it's just a fun thing about like why in the movies they have hair coloring the way that they do. It's because they're actually different lineages, and that's why like almost everyone in one area is blonde or dark haired or a shade of that. So fun story.
All right.
Also, all the hair were in that movie. They were all wigs.
They are gorgeous wigs.
All wigs. They helped a bunch of low-income people around the world by purchasing their hair to make for wigs.
It was beautiful. Every single person, gorgeous hair. Their hair was on point. Like, the styling. Okay, anyways, we'll go into a whole thing about the Lord of the Rings movies.
We'll save it for the movies. Memes. memes.
All right, so these are the beginning of the memes. So as we already said, we are going to start with the Silmarillion. So our next episode will be starting with that and the Anilundale. Is that how you say it? Anilundale? You're supposed.
Ainulindale.
What was it?
Ainulindale.
Anilundale. Okay, got it.
So it's essentially Genesis.
Yeah, this is kind of like the Bible, if you will.
It is like when I compare it to the Bible, I'm not kidding. It's literally like reading the Bible.
It is very much. So all of these memes that I have are going to be not spoilers for events that happen in the Silmarillion. It's just jokes about the Silmarillion. Because for anyone who hasn't read this or who has attempted it, this is probably one of the hardest things to read that Tolkien has ever written.
Which is why we wanted to start with it. Because if you're interested in the knowledge but can't read this text, we're here for you.
Yeah.
This is our goal.
It's going to be hard for us too, don't worry. That's, as you'll see with these memes, they're 100% true. So the first one we're starting with is the dog. Guys, I just watched Lord of the Rings movies and really liked them. Anyone able to fill me in on some of the lore? And it's this giant mastiff dog that just says, people who have read the Silmarillion, and then they stand over. Because it's so true.
My time has come.
All right, the next one. Oh, it's perfect for Pirates of the Caribbean.
Side note, Pirates of the Caribbean was another one of my favorites because Lord of the Rings was in there next. So Orlando Bloom was in there. Anyway, it's I'm not going to explain who these characters are. You don't need it. So the top part says, "You know you can't read." And the response, "It's the Silmarillion. You get credit for trying." You do. You really do. If you just walk around with the Silmarillion in your hand for a bit, you will get credit. You get points.
Yeah, seriously. Even if you are like, I read the Spark Notes, like, props to you, because even that's going to be hard.
Read the appendices. Like, do that. You're fine.
Golden, yeah. All right, so the next one is Jar Jar Binks. Me when I finished the Silmarillion for the first time. Me's a different now. Me's a enlightened. These are so good. I couldn't help it. I found so many of these. Next one.
Okay. Oh, can I keep going?
Yeah, go.
All right. The next one is Gandalf poring over documents. Me in the beginning of reading the Silmarillion, not knowing who the fuck everyone is. Oh, there's a chart.
Chart in mine too. Because that one's a second edition as well, right? We both have a second edition.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh no. What is all this? What is all this?
There's actually, I think, a meme relating to that later.
All right. There's a pronunciation guide. There's apparently a dictionary of Elvish words.
Oh, we'll get into it definitely the next episode. So I guess the reason why there's a dictionary for Elven words, because the Silmarillion is the elves' transcription of texts.
I got it.
In there.
There's lots of pages of who people are.
There really is. When we actually get into these people, I have even more. I have so many memes.
I will have to probably keep like a picture in the top of the screen to follow along with, because it gets drawn out.
Yes, I even have like pictures of people with their names, because sometimes, like for me, faces are easier to remember than names. So it's like, there you go. Hey, fan art for the win. All right, next one. It's from The Office. Oh, and it says, Game of Thrones fans, there are so many characters I can't keep track of them all.
We need maps. We need line charts to get through this.
The crazy thing about it is, unlike Game of Thrones, a lot of the characters in the Silmarillion are only named once. Literally once.
Also,
never seen again.
Also, arguably, Game of Thrones characters' names are super easy and fall within your general pronunciations. There's a pronunciation guide in the Silmarillion. If you don't know your old English, you need the guide.
All right, next
Side note, Tolkien was a linguist, and that's why.
Yeah. He wrote a universe for his languages. That's what he did.
Actually, in college, my first semester, one of my art projects was to create a language. And I was really excited because, I had been studying Elvish for a while. So I created my own language called Hishnaakin, don't ask. And I don't know why I remember that either. But I was only supposed to create 20 words. I went full Tolkien because I was completely inspired by him. I created an entire alphabet, grammar, and like wrote out paragraphs.
Wow.
And it was not like Roman alphabet. It was script I invented. My teacher gave me an A+.
Nerd.
So this one will pop up on the screen so you can see these faces. The first time you read the Silmarillion, the 100th time you read the Silmarillion. Who makes these?
I don't know. I have so many. All right. The next one is the picture of like the mind and like the parts of it lighting up as you get enlightened. So it's like a basic brain reading The Hobbit, reading The Lord of the Rings, a little bit more going on, reading the Silmarillion, a lot going on, and then like your mind just explodes. And it's reading the Silmarillion twice because you didn't understand shit the first time.
Oh, I just flipped to the next one. This might be my favorite. This might be our like motto or mascot, or I don't know. This is the image of this video, this channel. Okay.
This is it.
You have people who've read the Silmarillion, people who haven't read the Silmarillion. We're gonna hold hands together because we're going to be confused by the Silmarillion. We shall join together as one.
Yes, I love it. I think what I love the most about these memes is that in the next one, people are still making Lord of the Rings memes because this is from Avengers Endgame.
It is. The one we just saw with the brain, that's a relatively recent.
Yeah. So I just find it really funny that like Lord of the Rings has never died down. Like we're always here. Always.
It's been part of the fabric of our culture for 100 years now.
Yeah, it has.
Like,
it literally has. Hobbit was written and published in 1917. So it's been 100 years.
Shoot. It's 2021, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. All right, so next one is a picture of Thor getting back Mjolnir and Endgame, and it's me remembering who someone is in the Silmarillion 3 pages later. I'm still worthy.
It has Merry and Pippin holding a pint of Hobbit and a pint of Lord of the Rings.
No, no, Pippin, no, Merry has the pint. Pippin has the
half pint.
Whatever. Yeah, because he's like, they come in pints? That's that.
Yeah, it's like, I'm getting one. Yeah. And then it has Bilbo from The Hobbit immersed in the river holding a barrel of the Silmarillion. What's that?
Oh, the next one. Oh my god, these are like lining up perfectly because the next one's perfect for me. So it's a Faramir and Denethor having a talk. And Faramir says, Dad, I started reading Lord of the Rings. And Denethor says, Boromir would have read the Silmarillion.
Denethor is such a dick. He would totally save it.
Then we have one last one, which is perfect. I made sure that it was nothing spoilerish for the Silmarillion because out of context, no idea what the fuck is going on with this picture.
Do not touch magic tree, and it's got like a spider lady.
It's all things that happen in the Silmarillion. In this very special edition. I just love this artwork because I was like, can I just get this printed on a book?
So we're out of memes. And I guess that means the end of our introductory episode. I hope you had fun with us, learning a little bit about our, I guess, Lord of the Rings passion and having some fun with memes. Join us in our next episode as we talk about the Ainulin Dale, which I have to keep looking at to remember how to pronounce.
Just go for it. Ainulin Dale. Just go for it.
This series, we're going to go through each chapter of the Silmarillion and make it pretty easy for anybody watching to digest. So if you don't have the time to read it, or if it's just a difficult read, because we do know it is hard,
It is.
We're going to break it down for you so that you can absorb as much of the content as you would like. And if we decide to go further detail into tiny details, that doesn't make any sense, but I know what I mean. We'll
Rabbit
have those
holes.
videos too.
We'll have some rabbit holes you can fall into with us. Separate.
That's what Tolkien's about, right? His work is so fully realized that you can take one thread and just keep following it. So
yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun, I think.
Join us next week for Preface 1 of the Silmarillion. There are 2, as you mentioned before. So Preface 1, which is the Ainulindale, the music of the Ainur, which we'll go into more detail.
You need to learn how to say it quicker. Ainulindale. Ainulindale.
Ainulindale.
Ainulindale.
I can't do it, but I kind of want to name a child that.
Ainulindale. Call her Annie for short.
The way you say it is pretty.
Oh, well, thank you, because I'm totally bastardizing it. I know I am, and I don't give 2 shits.
Ainulindale.
Ainulindale.
Music of the Ainur. I think it translates to that, or they're
Yes, it is the music of the Ainur, and
it's the end of the beginning story of Middle Earth. So.
And it is literally the music of the Ainur. That's all we'll say on that.
So join us for Preface 1 of the Silmarillion next week. We'll post every Wednesday, I guess.
Sure.
We'll post every Wednesday. Yay!
Sounds good. Bye.